and I was introduced as the president of the Jackrabbits. And this little girl said, "Is he the president of all the bunnies?" And I mean, those kind of moments are just, really, really fun.
Hello, Jackrabbits Nation. My name is Heidi Bushong, and this is the Yellow and Blue Podcast. We have a very special guest with us here in studio today. He's a proud alum of South Dakota State University. Farmer, rancher, researcher, and academic are just a few items on his resume, and many would call him the people's president. The 20th president of South Dakota State University, Barry Dunn. Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Heidi.
We are so excited to have you on the show. And right now, school's out. It's May. Everyone's kind of taking a breath, thinking about the year that was. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that with you today and a little bit about everyone's favorite topic, talking about themselves.
Okay.
So there were so many things that SDSU has accomplished this past academic year, but is there anything that sticks out in your mind that were like personal favorites of yours?
Yeah, I think the Bold and Blue accomplishment will forever be the memory for this academic year. $604 million and almost 31,000 unique donors for me. And then the celebration was so much fun with the Johnny Holm Band. And so that's a big accomplishment. It's going to change the university for decades to come in a very positive way. So that's the top. Yeah. But the national championship, I mean, my gosh, Frisco was just so fun. And the team was so impressive and so powerful. It was just a great statement about who we are, I think, as a university. But it kind of kicked off with a large freshman class, which might seem kind of boring, but a third largest freshman class in history. And so that, turning that around, stabilizing enrollment and having those, additional 300 young people want to be here with us was really really important for us. I think it lifted the spirits of the faculty and of the administrators, all that whole team that's been working on enrollments so hard and so dedicated. But it's in response to our to Bold and Blue because we doubled the amount of scholarships that the foundation was providing. So a lot of that is tied together, but it's really fun.
Super important. We love to see when people pick South Dakota State University. Love to see when they come here. Speaking of which, you chose South Dakota State University as a student. You have 3 degrees from here. Let's kind of get into talking about yourself. Okay. Why did you decide to come to SDSU? Because I know you didn't graduate in South Dakota.
No, my parents moved around a lot when I was growing up, but maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, had a cattle ranch in Mission. My grandpa was a member of the Rosebud tribe, and that was kind of the stabilizing place for me. And so my older brother's 4 years older, Greg, and Greg wanted to visit South Dakota State. He was thinking about coming, but this is 1967 or something. The interstate hasn't been built I think it wasn't all the way to Brookings. And so we came and we visited my mom and Greg and myself. And because she was picking us up from spending the summer with our grandparents. And he didn't like it.
Oh, no.
And I loved it. It's the only place I applied. That's a challenge for me that I make decisions hard and fast. And I did. And that's the greatest decision I ever made.
Sure. What about it kind of drew you here? Why did you decide this is the place for me? I know I'm doing it.
The degrees that were offered interested me. It was range management, animal science, I just wanted to be a cattle rancher. Wanted to go there after I graduated. So the degrees that were offered, I ended up graduating in biology because I loved and I liked the science part of it. So I took mostly science courses. Got a minor in chemistry, kind of believe it or not, because it was hard.
Let's talk about your time as a student. You met a pretty important person here, person who would become your wife, and you got a degree in biology and then went straight into your master's degree, right?
Those 4 years as an undergrad made great friends in Matthews Hall and that are still great friends today. Again, I like to study a lot. So my roommate Larry and I would, get done eating at Grove Commons then, and we'd often go almost every night, go to the library, just studied a lot but we had a lot of fun. We played a lot of football outside and basketball in the barn for intramurals. And between my junior and senior year, I met Jane in Pearson Hall. But we dated all for 3 years and then got married after I got my master's, and she graduated from nursing. So
that's wonderful. So right after your time at SDSU here, you're getting married, you're going out, you're starting your career. What did you go do? Yeah,
I actually went to work for North Dakota State. I ran a beef research unit at the Carrington Research and Extension Center in Carrington, North Dakota. And Jane worked in the local hospital. We lived up there for 2 years, and it was so cold and so snowy.
People say that about here.
Yeah, it was much, much worse. I had a really nice house on the experiment station, and the snow literally covered the house that year.
Oh, wow.
We got a chance to go back home to the ranch. My grandparents had passed away, and had a chance to go back home. And Jane was nice enough to go on that journey with me. And so then we ranched there for almost 20 years.
Life as a farmer rancher is not for the weak. Tell me about your years ranching.
Wonderful, hard, difficult, challenging time. It was the farm crisis of the 80s.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging. But again, had great friends, great neighbors, just that rural experience. I was on the Conservation District Board. Jane was very involved. She taught nursing at Synagleshiga College. I took courses there in business because I was mostly a science guy here, so I needed to do some business courses. There were times when we couldn't afford extra help, so Jane and Barry were the only people on a 15,000 acre ranch, and it was a lot of wouldn't trade it, but it was challenging, very challenging. But again, that community, I had a strong group of friends and community members when I was a student here. And in Mission, we had just the best friends in Valentine and some in Winter. Those were the two trade towns, and just wonderful support from our several neighbors that I'll never forget. And then our friends in those communities just helped support us. We had a really strong relationship with the church that my grandparents had gone to and my great grandparents. And so that was really, that church meant a lot to us. And that community part of my life has been probably the constant that I've looked for and tried to build. So
your passion is animal science and range science, and that, shows through your degrees, being dean, through your years ranching. What about it is appealing to you?
Yeah, it's hard to describe unless you get out there, I think. But riding horseback across the prairies of South Dakota or the Sandhills of Nebraska, for example, it's pretty special. It's very different than going in a four-wheeler or a side-by-side. It's quiet. It's you and the horse, and if you're riding alone or with my brother Roger, because Roger was ranching with me, and all you hear is either the wind here in South Dakota, but the bird life and the flowers. I mean, I've ridden through valleys that in this time of year in May would just be blanketed with wildflowers.
Yeah,
and it's just an incredible experience, especially on horseback. It's hard to describe.
I gotta admit, horses scare me. No. They don't intimidate you at all.
No, I've been bucked off a couple times, but I know I have a real affection for horses.
They have a mind of their own.
No, yeah, you got to get with them. Like my best horse was named Chico, and Chico and I we knew what to do he knew what to do for me, and I knew how to take care of him. So
that's awesome. Love to hear it. So you eventually, when you were done farming and ranching, you returned to SDSU. Is that when you came back?
Yeah, my parents sadly passed away at the same time, and Jane and I were their caregivers, and Roger and Arlene helped. But it was actually, it was a family ranch, and so it just triggered the sale of the ranch for family reasons, and that was the hardest. And I made the decision, but it was the best decision for the family. So we sold the ranch, and Roger and Arlene are still ranching, not on that ranch, but a different place. And as I thought about reinventing myself, we looked at either going into seminary to be an Episcopal minister or coming back here to Brookings and getting a PhD. And
very different things.
Well, yeah, but both of them really important to me. But this was by far the best decision for our boys. And we had some property here in Brookings because of Jane's family. So it was a easier decision to come here than to go to seminary. So I came here and got a PhD and worked for the Extension Service. And we had we have a small farm. And so we farmed and raised cattle until I went to Texas. But it was the boys got a really good education in the Brookings school system. And Tom was our oldest son, and he was athletic and loved sports. And Michael was kind of the bookish one, and Michael was in debate and plays. And so it was a really good decision.
Sure. And so when you moved back, it was to Jane's family's homestead, correct?
Yeah, Jane's great-grandfather homesteaded the farm that we now own. So we took our resources from the ranch and bought the rest of the family out.
Oh,
and
I see.
1878, he homesteaded. He dug a hole there's a hill on our place, and he dug a hole there and for I think the first 2 years lived in a dugout. Those homestead stories are just amazing. Yes. And so got the farm started, and his brothers and his parents came over from Norway, and so it's still in the family. So that's pretty cool.
Not many people can say that. What's it like being able to kind of continue that history, to maintain something like that in your family when you had to painstakingly make the decision to sell your family farm?
Yeah, it was kind of helped temper that heartbreaking part of selling the ranch, was to be able to invest in Jane's family's farm. So it's I'm big on conservation, so we planted trees, and we cleaned. It hadn't been taken care of because her grandpa had died many years before. So we did a lot of cleanup, and it looks nice now, and we're really proud of it. So it's been good for me to pour my ranching or love of that part of my life into that farm. So
this was a move that made sense. You came back to Brookings, continued the homestead. Your boys have a ton of opportunities. And then there was an opportunity that came to you to be the executive director of the King Ranch at Kingsville.
Yeah.
Tell me about that story, because I really like this story.
Yeah. So the King Ranch family in Texas, in South Texas, is just an incredible story in itself. They started their ranch in 1853. And in celebration of their 150th anniversary, they endowed a program in ranch management at Texas A&M Kingsville. So it's one of the little sisters, they call them, of the A&M system. But all the rules are the same. We're just miles from campus. So that's down in Kingsville. It's 80 miles from Mexico.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who was on the search committee called and said there's very few people with PhDs in animal science who could have enough ranching experience to start this thing, and you're that guy. So they hired me, and Jane was patient enough to listen to this opportunity, and so moved to Kingsville for 6.5 years and got the institute started. It was a fantastic experience. It just working in another university system was really good for me in preparing for what turned out what I did. This was not a goal to be a president, but it turned out really helpful for me to work in another educational system, higher ed. And then just that Texas experience, they're a can-do people.
Yeah.
and so it was fun to be somewhere else because I'd spent most of my life in the Midwest and here in South Dakota. So it was really good for me to be somewhere else and expand it. I got to travel the United States a lot and work with large ranches in Florida Montana, and just all over the United States. So it was a great experience. And I mentored 20 grad students during that time, and just they're still wonderful friends.
Yeah.
And, so it was a terrific experience. Yeah.
When you talk about reinventing yourself and you went so many different places, this role really kind of prepared you to become dean, which is a major role here at SDSU. Tell me about coming back and becoming dean of the then College of Agriculture and Biological Sciences.
That time in Kingsville, there was an administrative part that I hadn't had before, so I had to get curriculum. I had to develop the curriculum. But I also had to raise money. So it gave me a chance to gain some fundraising experience and talk to millionaires about, talking them into giving you money. And then, but then the curriculum side, working through the academics of the A&M system was we had to get permission to do this. Going through that really administrative part of it, Heidi, really helped me get ready to be a dean, and budgets and fundraising and all those things. So coming back as dean, couldn't turn it down. As much as I enjoyed Texas, I wasn't gonna live there my whole life. So coming back, had a great opportunity to work under President Chiquin and Provost Lori Nichols, and so was the dean of the College of Ag and Biological Sciences. It just all fit together really well. So
it sounds like all the pieces were in place. It all just kind of made sense. You had your fundraising experience, the administrative experience, and obviously SDSU very well, and the people of South Dakota pretty well. So it really set you up for a good career as dean.
Yeah.
Do you ever miss, being able to be focused in the ag side of things?
I have a wonderful full life every day here as the president, but I kind of envy Dean Cassidy. We were doing well, and we had a really great support system. Don Marshall was the associate dean for academics. Sadly, he's passed away now, but we had a good team, and we did some good things.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some examples of some good things that happened during your time as dean? Because it was arguably the largest college on campus for a while.
Yeah, it was. It had biology in it, which is very unusual.
Yes,
but everybody
made sense for you, but not for anyone else.
Except for typically biology is not in a College of Agriculture, so we gained a lot of enrollment that way. And the hardest part was walking into a 10% budget cut, because when I became dean, there were some financial challenges when I started. And then Governor Dugard had across the board 10% budget cut because of the recessions. And so I had a lot of help, though, from Wes Cheddar, who was vice president of finance. And we got through that and reinvented extension and did some pretty dramatic things that were hard and took some really tough decisions, but turned out to be the right thing. But at the same time, started building relationships and raising money to rebuild the swine unit and rebuild the cow-calf unit, and did the ribbon cutting for the Young Brothers Seed Tech building, raised $1 million to name that. So I got out in the country a lot and listened and learned, and people always have advice for you. And
yes,
they do. And so, but it was really helpful too. But we built new greenhouses. We did a lot of good work. So
yeah, really some monumental things for that college. So after your time as dean, you ultimately became SDSU president.
Right.
Why did you decide to do that?
I didn't set out as a goal. I thought, when President Chiquin announced his retirement, some friends within the university and a lot of them outside the university encouraged me to apply. And it's unusual for a dean to become a president. Usually you go to vice president of research or student affairs or provost or something. So it was a little unusual. It's a big leap, but I had a lot of maturity, a lot of experience, and I gained a lot of trust across the state. I think, even though I'd made some tough decisions on extension, but kind of built that trust that I could make tough decisions and but also make some tough decisions on rebuilding a college. So so I felt strong and ready, and then so applied. Wasn't really sure that I had the support within the search committee, and I was honored and humbled to be selected as the 20th president of the place I love. So it was really great.
Was it something that kind of called to you, or was it when these people brought it to you, you thought, hey, I could probably do this?
I knew I could do it. I think it was whether I could get selected I had confidence that I could manage the budgets and make the decisions and build the relationships. So I felt, that I was, 60, 2-3 years old. So I'd had a lot of experience and felt pretty confident. I knew I could do the job. It was just a matter whether or not other people thought I could. And if I hadn't gotten the job, I would have retired, if I was allowed, of course, retired as dean, because I loved that job.
Yeah.
But it was a great opportunity, and just really pleased that I was chosen, and had a lot of support from Jane. Because it's a big deal for her too. A big part of the presidency is your spouse, and so she's been a tremendous support.
That is a very fair point to make. Whenever people see you out in public, like at sporting events or certain meetings or just events in the community, Jane's right there.
Yeah,
she's by your side. And thankful to have her there and, see that dynamic too. She always has the president's home looking so lovely with flowers, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Probably something really exciting for her. So you became president in 2016.
Right.
And 8 years on the job,
right.
You've been able to do a lot. How does your job now compare to your previous lives, so to speak?
Much more intense, and there's enormous responsibility. Number one concern for me every day is student safety. You read and hear about what happens on other campuses, whether it's to an individual or to a group of people with some violence. We've been very lucky, but we're prepared, I hope, But that's my number one concern has been student safety. So after that, then, you hire, I've just had a terrific team. I mean, Provost Hedge is just, a top-notch administrator. He gets the academic side he gets the whole university, but that academic side of the house is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 64 accredited programs now. We've doubled that number of accredited programs, and that's his leadership. Yeah. We went through university reaccreditation, had the best report the university's ever had. Karen Weber's my chief of staff.
She's the glue, keeps it all together.
Yeah, she does. And then I could go on, but Tracy Green, Michaela Willis, just Daniel Scholl, and then Mike Holbeck. When Wes Cheddar retired, Mike took over as vice president of budget and finance. And he's a really cool young guy, keeps me young. And he's been a lot of fun to work with. So we have a great team.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you said that you care a lot about student safety, but I could argue that you just care a lot about students in general.
I don't have grandkids, so I think of these 11, 12,000 kids. They're of the age of if things had worked a little differently in my life, Jane and I would have grandkids about that age, and so I just love them up. I mean, they're just such good kids, and they're becoming who they will be. They're going through that. The difference between a student as a freshman on move-in day when I'm carrying something in to the dorm, or unloading their car versus what happened a few weeks ago with commencement, the difference in that student, it's so wonderful. It's that transformation. And that's what we do well here. And so that's what's really fun about it.
You say you love the students as if they were your grandkids because you don't have any of your own. But really, they're the focus at everything you do. I mean, I say it in our office all the time. It's for the students. They're the reason why we're all here. And you've arguably done a lot of stuff for the students. Let's talk about some different things that you've been able to do as president. Anything that sticks out as like a personal favorite of yours?
Starting the WOKINI initiative will always just have a big part of my heart. Doesn't impact the greatest number of students, but I lived on the reservation with my grandparents a lot, and then when Jane and I were there ranching, so I get it. I get what my mother went through. I get what my grandpa went through, and that for me is the kind of the where I could really make a difference.
Yeah. Well, and for those who don't know, what is the WOKINI initiative?
It's a Lakota word for new beginning. So SDSU's always had the responsibility to serve all of the state of South Dakota, and some would argue that after 100 and some years, we've not served American Indians, that part of the population, as well as we should. Can't go back and change what was or wasn't done here, but we can go forward and make this place more welcoming to American Indian students. And we've got a long way to go, but we've got a new American Indian Student Center. Just tremendous success stories of American Indian students coming from the reservations who are now pilots or architects or in veterinary medicine school, going to med school, going to law school, becoming teachers. Just wonderful stories of success. I'd love to multiply that by quite a few, but it's just heartwarming and fulfilling, exciting for me. I get a little shiver just thinking about it. But then on the bigger side, I think winning the WNIT when our office bought the tickets for all the students, because students don't get in free into NCAA tournament type games. So we have to find the resources to buy them. And that we bought a lot of tickets. We got a lot of help from some great donors, and being able to win that WNIT that spring and beat, major,
UCLA, right?
Yeah, UCLA, University of Minnesota, and major schools, and just a tremendous team, and it was fun to. And so listening that day, those when those young women won that tournament was another really special moment for me, because the Frost was packed, and it was just a great time.
I was there. It was filled to the brim. Like Jamie Trigstead looked the other way. It was one of those kinds of days. Couple things I have on my list. You mentioned tickets. You also did the same thing for like the playoff games for football, which you want people in the stands. We got 2 national championships. Gear swap. That one's kind of a fun one too, that I always like to see. Like where you turn in your sweatshirt from another university for a discount on SDSU stuff.
Yeah, and that has some Texas roots. So when you're in Texas, people are either wearing University of Texas gear, a cap or a sweatshirt, or A&M, and it's one or the other. But here at SDSU, when I came back as dean, there's kids wearing University of Minnesota swag and every other university in the world. And so I wanted to brand us better. And so I've done this gear swap thing where kids can turn in a t-shirt or sweatshirt or cap from another university and get a discount towards in our bookstore. But I've also actually gone up to kids and say, I'll buy that sweatshirt, that U of M sweatshirt from you, and buy you a new sweatshirt if you'll. And I've done that a lot. And it just drives me nuts when our students wear somebody else's gear. So it's getting better. You don't see it nearly as much now, but winning a couple national championships has helped.
Yeah, we're really proud of our yellow and blue here.
Yeah.
Another one I want to talk about kind of goes back to your time as dean was the berry berry ice cream flavor. Yeah. That's a super notable one. People may not necessarily know it's named after you going back as dean, but tell me about that.
Yeah, I wanted to learn how ice cream was made. I'm a beef guy, and so Jane and I spent the afternoon in the dairy and one summer on a slow day, and we had 3 young women who were student workers, and the 5 of us made berry ice cream. I wanted lots of berries because of my name.
Right.
And so we used strawberry, blueberry, and raspberry. And then we got to try some and adjust the recipe. Yes. And we came up with a great recipe. There was no idea that it would be
as big as it is.
No, I mean, there wasn't an idea that this would become a flavor that was in the
lineup. Yeah,
right.
It's like at every SDSU event, you got your cookies and cream, of course.
Yeah.
And then you have your berry.
But it wasn't planned. It was just, I didn't know how to make ice cream. And so I wanted to learn. And I love ice cream. So it's fun. It's really fun.
Variety is the spice of life, is the way I like to think. And I love the fact that you like to try new things and learn about new things. And I think that's really valuable as president, too, which is why I think some people arguably would call you the people's president.
Oh, well, that's nice. Yeah.
SDSU has been in your life for decades. And you talk about, living in Matthews Hall, loving Sylvan Green. The campus really has changed a lot over this time. What to you is really like the biggest change that you've noticed?
It's just so much nicer now. So whether it's the new dormitories or the additions to the union, and I wouldn't know this if I hadn't been in administration, but the chiller plants that air condition all the buildings there's so many parts of it. The heating plant is better. The kind of the guts of the university are just stronger. We have more access points for wireless. Kids can run the craziest games, in their dorm room because we upgraded so many of the plumbing and the heating and the IT, the internet, and that nobody really sees. But there's been a tremendous effort over the last, several decades to really improve the university from a functional perspective.
Yeah.
So it's a much nicer campus than it was. At the same time, we held on to Sylvan, and we've improved the union, and we've improved. So many. Lincoln Hall is now spectacular. Harding Hall is a really nice place. And so that's really fun, I think.
You talk about going to the library with Larry back when Lincoln was a library, and now it's kind of like rejuvenated itself. You can see those roots again. What's it like being able to be part of this full circle?
It's really rewarding. I wanted to fix up Lincoln, and we tried to fundraise for it, and we didn't get any donors. So we used university resources to fix up Lincoln, and it means a lot to me. We fixed up Ag Hall. It means a lot to me. I spent a lot of my life in Ag Hall as a student and then a dean, and we remodeled the first and second floor of Ag Hall. Third had already been done. Well, we have so it means a lot that it's a nicer and nicer campus.
Absolutely. What has been your favorite part about being president?
It's that people part. I was introduced to a couple, and they had this little toddler, and probably 3 or 4 years old, and I was introduced as the president of the Jackrabbits, and this little girl said, "Is he the president of all the bunnies?" And I mean, those kind of moments are just really, really fun. And I've got this long list of them now, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
I guess I am the president of all the bunnies for a little bit. I think the answer was, I told her, no, not the Easter bunny. So
let's
really
put
cute.
that on a business card.
Yeah.
Be a lot shorter. You've had many lives, as you said on this podcast, many different roles: farmer, rancher, academic, president. When your time is done here, what do you want to be remembered for?
That people's president, that I was friends with the faculty members, and that I was friends with thousands of students and knew their names or got to experience a football game with them or something. Just during my time, the university was strengthened in many ways. Not only physically, it's a nicer place, but financially, we're much stronger than we've ever been. I just want people to think back that I was a good caretaker and steward of their university. So that's kind of what I want to be remembered for. So.
Perfect. Great way to end. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Barry.
Thank you, Heidi. It's been fun.
Yes. This is the Yellow and Blue Podcast. Thanks for listening.